Most of you guys might think that Shang-Chi is just another mystical martial arts superhero, and mostly you're right, but there's something that happened in one of the most recent comic runs that I think might be brought into the MCU, and I think it might make some big waves, especially if you're a fan of Blade and vampires, so I want to share it with you. I'm going to tell you about it in just 1 second, but if you could do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe if you're new here, it'd really help me out. Now, I'm sure all of you know about Blade. He's the vampire-killing superhero that's most famous in the Wesley Snipes movie from 1998. Personally, I'll always remember him from those weird story arcs in the Ultimate Marvel Universe, like fighting a vampire version of Captain America or joining the Ultimates. And to be honest, I can't believe I liked those comics when they first came out. I'm getting flashbacks just thinking about how cheesy they were. If I try to ignore the comics and just focus on those first 3 Blade movies, then you gotta admit, there's nothing cooler than a katana-wielding half-vampire superhero. And since we know he's coming to the MCU pretty soon, with Ali cast in the lead role, then we should probably try to find out how he'll tie in. If you imagine the supernatural world of Marvel Comics, Blade doesn't really fit in with the classic venerable sorcerer types like Doctor Strange, even though they have a totally normal superhero relationship and even teamed up as the Midnight Suns to fight against Lilith, the ancient demon. And then again in 2005, Blade teamed up with Black Panther in a weird vampire slaying, missing, but still Blade is just a different flavor of supernatural character. He belongs more to the biker bar, black leather type world. You know, Morbius and Ghost Rider, or at least in my mind, that's where they would fight. So that doesn't leave him many places to show up in the MCU, and unlike the cringier Marvel films from Sony and Fox, of which there were a few like Elektra, Daredevil, and Ghost Rider, the MCU doesn't really have a weird, leather-clad, over-sexualized vampire-friendly realm for Blade to easily enter. Again, if Blade popped up in Ghost Rider or Daredevil, I'd say that makes sense. Those movies were filled with characters and situations that were unironically trying to look stereotypically tough. Leather trench coats, random Evanescence songs playing in the background, and a couple of sexy but scary club scenes for good measure. Blade could have dropped by, killed a random vampire, and I would have thought that doesn't seem too strange, but I wouldn't feel the same way in the MCU. So where could he pop up? I'm going to take a big guess and say Shang-Chi. Now I know it must just seem like I'm saying that because Shang-Chi is phase 4, but Blade is going to debut in either 4 or 5, I think. However, that being said, it's not really all that simple, it's just the phases. You see, in a recent run of Shang-Chi, the martial arts master almost became a vampire. But not just any vampire. He almost became a Jiangshi. Now, if that sounds like a completely new word for you, then don't worry, it's not. If you've ever seen a scary phantomish monster in Chinese or East Asian films, then you probably know what a Jiangshi is. They typically wear ancient Kang Dynasty clothes, usually have pale white faces, and hop around with their hands outstretched trying to suck the life out of their victims. They're basically half zombie, half vampire. They're a bit different than Western vampires though, at least in the comics they don't just have blind bloodlust. They're usually brought back to life because they hold a grudge against someone or something, and until that score is settled, they can't rest. In the Shang-Chi comic, they can be defeated by placing a holy parchment blessed by a monk on their forehead. They also are pretty gray corpse creatures, so they have black starry goo for blood. Now I think that this is the place where Blade and vampires can make a complete natural MCU debut. In the newest volume of Shang-Chi, which debuted last year and finished up in January of 2021, Shang-Chi actually almost became a Jiangshi. Again, one of those Chinese vampire monsters, and if we know anything about the MCU, they like to use newer stories for their films instead of classic ones. Falcon and Winter Soldier is mostly based on Sam Wilson's run as Captain America, which started in 2014, and WandaVision borrowed a lot from the Vision miniseries, which ran in 2015. So it makes perfect sense to me that the 2020 volume of Shang-Chi would be the inspiration for vampires in the MCU. The only problem is, well, Shang-Chi, the movie, finished filming before the new series of comics came out, which puts a wrench in my theory, possibly. I'm holding out hope for my prediction in the after-credit scene, though. After all, the classic shawarma scene at the end of the first Avengers wasn't even filmed until a few weeks before the film's debut, so there's a real chance that a Jiangshi scene could be teased at the end of Shang-Chi. Thanks for watching this video, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one. With great power comes great responsibility.